Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of InsureTalk. This is our 62nd edition, and my name is Carl Nalter. I'll be your MC today, and it's great to welcome a couple of thousand of my favorite insurance colleagues to today's session. So we're obviously at the end of another CPD cycle, and whilst many of us attend these sessions for our CPD hours, added benefit is obviously the growth and the learning that we get, connecting with our colleagues and just strengthening this amazing industry that we're all a part of. But congratulations to all of those people that have completed their CPD hours, and for those of you that will use today's session to do so. Well done. So today's theme is powering broker relationships through trust, technology, and accountability. And many of us attending InsureTalk are obviously very biased towards intermediaries and brokers, and we look forward to hearing more about trust, technology, and accountability in the space. We're delighted that our sponsor for today is Old Mutual Insure. They're our headline event partner. And Old Mutual Insure needs no introduction. They have been around longer than all of us, a history of nearly 200 years. So one of South Africa's most resilient and most powerful brands. Old Mutual Insure provide phenomenal products, and have made and continue to make a massive contribution to the insurance industry. And so we're really delighted that Old Mutual Insure are our partner today, and that a number of teammates and colleagues from OMI will be joining us to share their expertise. So before we get going with the first speaker, I thought it's useful just to take a pause and a breath, because we're only in May, but the world continues to speed up. And part of that's great because there are so many opportunities around us. But I think part of it is also that sometimes we need to prioritize better, get a bit more perspective. So before we get to the first speaker, a big breath suggests that we all focus and present here for today's session. So kicking us off is Jaco Brits from OMI. He's the Executive for Strategic Projects and Change in the retail space. And Jaco is one of those interesting people that has a really strong commercial CV, which I'll share a bit with you now. But what I love as well is that Jaco is an accomplished musician. So as head, or as the Executive for Strategic Projects and Change at OMI, Jaco leads innovation and transformation initiatives, and they focus on turning strategy into meaningful real-world impact. So not just the theory, but actually the execution. Jaco's work centers on enabling modern ways of working, leveraging technology and AI responsibly, and driving change, but change that also then strengthens relationships with brokers, clients, and the business overall. Known for his people-centered approach, Jaco is passionate about unlocking creativity and building environments where innovation can thrive without losing the human connection. And as I mentioned, beyond the corporate world, he's an accomplished musician who has toured internationally. So we might have to get Jaco to double up and be our entertainment today as well. But this experience of being a musician, I think, has shaped his belief in collaboration, adaptability, and creative problem solving. And in a world where AI, which is so phenomenal, is often dominating conversations, that human touch is so important. As a husband and a father of two, Jaco brings a strong sense of perspective to his work, guided by the principle of protecting what truly matters. Jaco is going to be talking to us about intelligent evolution versus broker relationship power. Jaco, welcome, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Carl. I definitely will not be starting my morning with a song today, but hopefully the message I share will be like music to your ears. So yeah, it's not too hectic of a topic for early morning, but yeah, I'm excited to be spending this morning with you guys. If you've got any questions or comments to add on, please, in that Q&A box at the side, please put it there, and at the end I can respond to all of it, and we can complete this conversation a bit further there while the other speakers also continue. So yeah, no, let's jump right into it. So the topic today, at first glance for me, it sounds almost like a fight. It is, on the one side, we've got artificial intelligence, automation, speed, data, scale, insights, etc. And on the other side, we then have broker relationship. which has trust, empathy, advice, relationship, and also human judgment that sits at the heart of this intermediated business for us. So I think many people in the industry currently ask this question of, but which one is going to win in this dynamic? And do we lean into this intelligent evolution side, or do we actually protect the broker relationship? My view is simple. I do think that that's the wrong question to ask. My view is that it should not be one against the other, but actually the opportunity here is to see how do we combine both of them. The broker that will win in the future is not necessarily the most digital broker, but it would be the most trusted broker who is actually enabled by technology. On the one side, we've got intelligent evolution that is changing what is possible. We can move faster, we can do work at greater scale, and be also more accurate. And we can extract insights from information that is scattered around all over the place that previously was a complex task to do. But on the other side, insurance is also deeply personal. So clients do not just buy a policy, they actually buy confidence, reassurance, and they buy in the belief that if something goes wrong, someone that they trust would actually be there to make sense of us all. So for me, that is where broker relationship power comes in. A broker is not only a channel. A broker is a translator, a guide, a calming voice, and also a person who helps understand what matters. So for me, the question is not if technology matters, because it does. The question is whether technology helps brokers to become more valuable and whether it makes this relationship feel more valuable or feel more distant. So I want us to talk about intelligent evolution, and this should be beyond just the thinking of ChatGPT writing some emails. The real power here is speed in helping us respond faster, scale in helping us serve more clients, accuracy in reducing the amount of mistakes, picking up on missing information, inconsistent interpretation, content, and also insight to help us see patterns that go across, risks, signals, all of that that's easy to miss while we are busy in our day-to-day and under pressure. For me, that is powerful. But by itself, it's just not enough. A faster answer is not always better. A more accurate summary is also not always better advice. And more data does not automatically create more trust. That, for me, is where the other side of this coin matters. When we look at broker relationship power, here it is built on different capabilities. It has trust that the client believes that you truly have their best interest at heart, empathy that you understand what is actually going on in their lives, and only not just focus on what they are asking, but what the real feeling behind it is. Expertise and years of experience to help you interpret complexity and also give them guidance. And then loyalty, because clients stay because they feel understood, supported, and protected. For me, these are not soft extras, but actual commercial advantages. Technology can help you work faster, but relationships are what makes a client stay. And in a market where a client can compare, search, and also switch easily, this now makes that trust becomes more important than ever. So I want to go a bit through around where we touched last year on Gen AI versus also where we're at now. So it was last year right around, can it draft an email? Can it compare a document for me? Can it summarize some policy wordings? And can it help put together some training content? Now, while this is very important question to answer, I think for me that strapline at the bottom is quite a bit of a scary part, is a year in AI is like a decade in normal change. So for me this year, it should more focus towards what should a broker actually do with this? Because the capability is moving fast. Tools are improving, access is improving, and quality is improving. But value does not simply come from just having the AI. AI value comes from knowing where to apply it, when to trust it, when to challenge it, importantly, and also how do we use it to improve our client experience. So we're going to delve a bit deeper into it. So like I mentioned, 2025, majority was around, can it answer simple questions? Can it draft content for me? Am I able to compare some policy wordings? And that at itself is incredibly useful for us. But in 2026, for me, there's quite a big shift that's coming. AI is increasing the way it helps us prepare for work. It connects random bits of information. It helps support decision making. And it also sits in everyday tools that we use, which for me is something at the heart of it that's really starting to make this change. A simple example I've actually read about in this week on a lifestyle use case was someone, an individual, not a company, not something you buy, actually used Anthropic's Claude, which is a Gen AI LLM platform, to connect to their smartwatch, the health app on their phone, and also build a model internal just with some prompts around exercise. And what this thing then was able to do is actually go from the moment you wake up and you turn off your alarm, it sends a trigger to your AI. It then looked at how was your day yesterday? Did you have an incredibly stressful day? Your heart rate was spiking the whole time, or were you quite calm? And then it also looks at your sleep patterns. Then it can see, did I have this full night of rest? Was I awake a lot during night, or did I not get enough sleep? And based on all of that data it's gathered, it can then recommend some activity for your day and say, yes, you had a good night of sleep. Here's quite a hard workout for you to get that summer body. But it's, for me, an extent to how personalized this can actually become compared to where we used to be and just ask it, act like a personal trainer and give me some training programs. And I think for me, where this becomes specifically valuable for brokers and clients is in the broker world, it's not neat and organized around data. A client sends you a WhatsApp, they send you an email, a random PDF here, some photos, you've got a voice note, renewal documentation, all across. The information is fragmented across, and work is often also sitting in multiple systems and conversations. And now for me, this opportunity is with AI being able to interact at its core, interact with multiple systems, it can help you prepare. It's not only to ask it a question, it can actually help prepare for the work you need to do. And a year ago, many of us would have asked AI to write something, but now it can actually help us to understand our client situation, prepare for a review conversation, surface some missing information, or summarize history and interactions across multiple systems. That, for me, is where this big shift sits. So before we go into some practical scenarios and a bit more of a fun side, this is for CPD points, so I figured we can learn a little bit this morning around some of these new advances. So for me, two main concepts I want to chat through is around deep research as well as agentic AI. So if we look at deep research, this is AI helping you understand more. It can research, reason, pull information that's scattered across together to put together a structured output for you. Almost think of it as you've got this team of researchers sitting and waiting that has access to the WhatsApp, the emails, all of it, client files, and you just ask a simple question to your team. They come back with, here's your entire pack that put all the structured and scattered information in a structured pack, and it makes it easy for you to actually do your job. So for me, this moves it away from just asking GPT, can you help write some prompt for me? It moves it into research with clients' industry, summarize the key risks I can anticipate from this industry, prepare questions for my next review. So immediately, this does not replace the broker, but it actually prepares them. The second concept we look at is agentic AI. So think of agentic AI as AI helping you to do more. It can now work through multiple steps using different tools, files, browsers, apps, all under human oversight. So for a broker, it might look something like prepare my renewal pack, but not just write the email. Check what information is missing, what communication has happened on different platforms, something on a notepad I wrote on my laptop, a voice note sitting here, WhatsApp, random email, and then use all of that to draft a client email for me, but also flag what's important for me to review and understand before I actually send it. And again, here, it brings the broker in control. The key distinction for me here is deep research helps you to understand more, and agents help you do more. So it's neither replaces the judgment, but this is for me where the broker remains essential, is to use this as an enabling tool to help them do more and be faster, more responsive, and have larger context of the actual situation they're working in. So the main concept of this title for me is not that it's one versus the other. It should actually become intelligent evolution and broker relationships. AI can help brokers know more, prepare better, and also respond faster. but a broker can still give meaning to this information. AI can organize your policy documents, but the broker explains exactly what this means to a client. AI can highlight the gap, but a broker turns that into a trusted conversation. AI can also prepare the work, but the broker owns this relationship. That for me is the dynamic DO. And I would like to make this more practical and go into some actual broker scenarios that we face just to see how this would play out. So we're going to look at three specific moments: a difficult conversation, a client that drifts away, and before a specific need is missed. Now, these are not technology problems we're trying to solve. These are relationship moments we're trying to support. So the question for me is, how can AI help the broker show up better in these specific moments? If we look at scenario one, the difficult conversation. Now, I know OMI never places a broker in any difficult conversation, so I know it's for the rest of the industry out there, but let's assume the client is waiting. This client feels uncertain. They want clarity. This could be something like an overdue claim update, a delay in a process, a conversation about premium, or even a renewal increase you need to discuss. In these moments, clients often do not just want information. They want reinsurance, but the broker might also be under pressure, have multiple clients to see. We did talk about scale as well, and information is scattered across. The latest status might sit in one place, previous messages around this sits in a different place, and your client is completely somewhere in the middle, lost. This for me is where AI can help. AI can help pull together what is the latest. What did the client ask previously? Are there any likely concerns for me to be aware of and preempt before I go into this conversation? And what is the next best action? Is there any recommendation on steps for me to take, areas for me to think about? And also importantly, how can I explain concepts in plain language? Or if it's a normal conversation to have, how can I make sure that what I am sending, what I'm planning on saying is also clear, plain, understandable language to make this conversation easier? For me, that is very different than saying, ChatGPT, please write this email for me to soften a blow on a renewal increase. This is, the value sits in the preparation. The broker now arrives in the conversation informed, calm, and ready. He's run through some scenarios. He's ready. But the reinsurance still comes from that broker, because the client not only wants a status update, they want to know that someone understands what's going on, they understand your situation, and is also taking responsibility to make sure we resolve this. So the line I want to leave here is that I can prepare your conversation, but the broker owns that reassurance. If we look at our next situation, so the drifting client, a client rarely leaves just all of a sudden. They start drifting first. They stop engaging, they start being quiet, and more often by the time a broker realizes it, mostly it's too late. All of these signs have subtly been there and a client starts drifting. AI can actually help you spot these relationship signals earlier. Is there weak engagement going on? Some missed touch points, some repeated frustration, questions they've asked, but in the hustle of it, you missed the last line on a mail, something like that. It can start picking up all of this stuff. Is there renewal risks or concerns? And also a long gap between the last meaningful conversation you guys have had. But again, the point is not for AI to then just send a generic message and tick the box. The point is for AI to tell the broker, this client might need specific attention. Here is your history. Here's the last raised issues. Here's why they might be feeling neglected. And also, here's an idea of a thoughtful reason maybe to reconnect. But it's not you out of sudden just saying, I think you might be leaving, let's have a conversation. And that for me is where this broker relationship power actually matters, is the broker then makes that personal contact. A generic message says, your renewal is upcoming. A broker relationship message says, I have noticed that we have not reviewed your property in a while, and I want to make sure your cover still reflects your current world. That for me is a lot different. Retention is not only one at a renewal, but it is built in those quiet moments in between before a client starts looking elsewhere. So again, key message for me, AI can spot the signal, but a broker actually rebuilds that connection. And our last scenario is before a specific need is missed. So The client changes, but their cover may not. Life changes, business changes, assets change, and risk changes. But unless someone asks the right questions at the right time, those changes can go unnoticed. So this for me is also where AI can come in, support the broker by signaling or surfacing possible signals. This could be change in business activity, in lifestyle, in assets, information that has changed, a change in turnover, claim patterns that you're starting to notice, or a piece of missing information. AI can actually help you surface that, but it must not jump straight to a recommendation how we fix this. That for me is the broker's role. The broker must take these signals, interpret it, understand the context, and then also ask the right questions because there's a lot of sensitivity that sits in these kind of signalings. Clients must never feel that they are being constantly watched, analyzed, targeted. This conversation must feel like care. It should not feel like surveillance. That is why the broker for me remains central. It should not be this overarching bot constantly monitoring what's going on just so that we know where to sell something to you. That is where that relationship becomes key. And again, AI can surface the gap, but the broker needs to make it relevant. So, if we accept that AI and broker relationship power must work together, for me, there's something then what we need to ask is what would good then look like? Because the fact of the matter, not all AI use is good AI use. Using AI is not automatically putting you as an innovator. And the question is whether it improves your judgment, clarity, and client trust. If we look at the specific slide, for me, why it's important is there's some research done by Harvard Business School to look at both sides of the story, both sides of a coin. When AI is used well and for the right purposes, using AI for its strengths, performance has improved. Work was faster, quality was improved. And for me, that's definitely the exciting part around all of this. But at the same time, the research also shows the flip side of this coin. It is also when AI is used outside of its strengths, people are less likely to reach a correct answer. Now, imagine a client using AI before your conversation to say, as you reach there, I actually asked ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, how can I reduce my insurance premium? And it told me that because I've got buildings and content cover, I can actually just remove my business interruption cover because if a building burns down, we'll be fine. The insurer will still have to pay. As much as that might logically sound like good advice to a client, it is dangerously incomplete. For me, AI helps them to ask a question, but it does not understand the full context. That is where a broker comes in. AI can provide the answer, but a broker must come in, provide this judgment and guide. And that for me is the key lesson for brokers is AI is powerful when it supports judgment, but it becomes dangerous when it replaces judgment. So good AI for me is use AI to prepare, not to pretend. Use AI to simplify, but also not oversimplify. And use it to support your judgment, not replace judgment. AI should be creating more time for the human connection and not less. And the broker must still own this outcome. So AI can suggest, structure, and highlight, but a broker must still validate, decide, and advise. So getting to this point, we're going to start looking at now, but what does this broker of the future look like? The broker gives the client an instant response, or at least some faster, clearer response. They are also always ready because they arrive prepared. They had this research team doing all the background work for them to make sure by the time they arrive at a conversation, at a client, at a new business conversation, they are prepared, understand the industry, they know exactly what they're walking into. They also give clear advice because now the complexity has been translated into something that the client can easily understand. Again, it's in plain language, in very specific language. It's easy to translate specific content based on your conversations you need to have. And it is clear, practical, and they can see how it applies to their business. And it also gives you a big foot to stand on should you be in that scenario where your client uses AI to question every single thing you send them, or before any renewal increase, they also ask, but is this normal? What can I chop out of my cover? and not let them run rampant with their understanding of insurance, but actually play your role as this trusted advisor. Then it's also, again, on early insight. So because these signals are surfaced early, you can see exactly when a client might start to drift, or there's been quite a while since an actual meaningful conversation. A lot of it has been either high level or just around some topics that's not actually addressing this client need, but because it's one client across 100 that you need to get to, here now you'll have that insight, you'll have that ammunition to actually support this client a lot better by having that context. Again, on the previous points, having it available instantly, you can quickly get back with feedback that's based in facts. You're always ready for conversations because you've got that knowledge base. Your advice is clear and understandable, and you've got these signals to help you know exactly where to do what to action, what to focus on. And then most importantly for me here is around earning trust. This is not by resisting technology, but also definitely not by just blindly adopting it. By using AI responsibly, for me, it should strengthen the relationship. So it should be about how do we use all the technology that's available to us. And I think referencing one of the earlier slides in AI change happening so fast, it's again, if we have this conversation 4 months later, again, the content would have changed. We've got deep research, agentic AI, that almost changes on a daily basis. The amount of information it can do changes significantly. And I do think that's where our mindset needs to be, is how can we start to actually use this to start strengthening our relationship. So for me, this conclusion lies in where the power sits between both technology and where a broker comes together. So what more would you want from this perfect partnership? For me, it's perhaps something you can take this business partner with you to any boardroom for any meeting, specific like this boardroom in the picture here that I know you guys might be familiar with. And it's also when you truly start to tap into the strengths of this new partnership, this new technology, I think you will find that it has a lot more that it can offer you. And if you pay close attention, it can even help you improve all aspects of your daily life. So again, thank you for spending this time with me. I would definitely like to continue this conversation, but also conscious of time. So please post your questions and comments in the Q&A box. It will also help if you can give us a note of where are you currently seeing value in your current life? Are you using tech to solve specific business problems for you, even in lifestyle, personal? How are you leveraging tech in your current day-to-day to make sure you get the most out of it? So again, thank you for spending this time with me. I truly hope that this does give you a useful way to think about the next stage of insurance, and not as a threat to the broker relationship, but as a tool that we can use to make those relationships stronger, more informed, and valuable. Thank you.
As a reminder, our headline sponsor is Old Mutual Insure, and that was Yaku sharing some thoughts on the brilliance of brokers and intermediaries and how they're evolving alongside technology and AI. As per Yaku's request, drop your notes and questions in the chat, and Yaku and the team will respond to those. A big part of InsureTalk is to have the conversations flowing, so feel free to engage with the speakers during and after the session. And yeah, we continue to have people who think that AI is an absolute threat, others that think AI is a great opportunity, and yet others that are overhearing about AI. But I think this is definitely a topic that we're going to continue raising here at InsureTalk. Next up is another OMI executive, and that is Faithful Kumbula. Faithful is the executive for compliance and risk management in the retail space, and we're delighted that Faithful is joining us. She's got over a decade of experience in audit, risk management, compliance, and governance within the financial services sector. In her current role, Faithful leads enterprise-wide risk frameworks, ensuring alignment with regulatory requirements and strategic business objectives. Previously, Faithful was head of intermediary value proposition and governance at Old Mutual, and there she played a key role in enhancing advisor value propositions, strengthening the governance structures, and launching innovative solutions to meet evolving market needs. And her role there included building strategic partnerships, and driving digital and operational improvements across the advisory business. And while Faithful's career began in internal audit, it progressed through roles of increasing responsibility, and she built a strong foundation in risk-based auditing, financial controls, and stakeholder engagement. Faithful holds a Master of Science in Accountancy and Control from the University of Amsterdam, and she's completed executive leadership development programs in various institutes. She's passionate about governance, innovation, as well as people development. She remains committed to driving sustainable performance and resilience in our dynamic regulatory environment. Faithful's going to be talking to us about third-party risk and outsourcing, and answer the question, or help us answer the question, who is really accountable? Thank you very much for joining us, Faithful, and we're very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Right. Sorry about that. Lightning in the office. Good morning, everyone. So today I'll be talking about third-party risk management and outsourcing. And as Carol has alluded to, who is really accountable? And I think, as Yaku touched on, that the use of AI is here to enable the brokers, to enable the discussions. But ultimately, the broker is still accountable, still responsible for the advice, for the relationship, not the enablement partner. So when we look at third-party risk mainly arises when an organization outsources or relies on a third party for delivering. And due to that, many risks arise from that. We've got compliance risk, reputational risk, strategic risks, and operational risk that comes from that relationship. And why it has become important the last couple of years is because business has evolved. Business is no longer a one-stop shop. One cannot do it all. Currently, across all our business value chains, especially in the insurance sector, we've realized that one business cannot be responsible for delivering customer value. As a result of that, businesses have embarked on partnering up not only to enhance customer acquisitions, but also to deliver on customers. So the boundaries are shifting currently. Where value is being created being organizations, you cannot do it alone because it is a liability. And ecosystems are now becoming the norm. So in the insurance industry, we know financial ecosystems are now becoming the norm. And because of that, that gives rise to third-party risk, because now you're relying on your partner to deliver on the expectations. So clearly it means the opportunity is there, but then a challenge arises around governance, because you do not necessarily have the day-to-day oversight over third parties, but you're still required and still accountable from the regulator. And we saw that last year, where the regulator's focus was on third parties, on how businesses are managing third parties, and how that's being filtered down. So if I can just start with the third party failure. We saw recently in the news the ongoing case where the South African Policy Service awarded a 360 million outsourced services to Medicare in 2024. This was meant to support critical health, risk, and wellness services. However, the partner did not deliver. Medicare 24 did not deliver on their promises. And what we saw was weak governance structures, allegations, findings, and procurement irregularities that occurred. As a result of that, nothing was delivered, and we have an ongoing investigation that's been headlining the news. So as a result, the deliverable was not met. And still to date, that has not been met, and no one can really account for what happened to the 360 million. So over time, we are seeing the reliance on third parties is becoming quite critical in our businesses across, whether it be public sector or private sector. And the key question remains, who's really accountable? Because if I'm outsourcing, clearly it means I'm believing someone who can deliver, or this is someone's area of specialty, and when they fail, I'm being held accountable. is the outsourcing party. So third-party failure rarely begins with a third party, but it begins internally. When an organization embarks on the journey to go out there and get a partner to deliver on their behalf, what structures are being followed, what processes are being followed, and how do we ensure that they align with the industry expectations, with the regulator expectations, but most importantly with the customer expectation, which I'll speak to later on. And when we look what success looks like, we can look no further than our own home ground. Old Mutual Insure in 2018 partnered up with TRS. So TRS specializes in corporate property insurance. And we knew at the time we were not the specialist. It was not our area of expertise. So we went and we partnered up with TRS, who are good at what they do. Why that partnership worked well for us was because we still retained accountability as OMI. We expanded our expertise, and clearly our strategic alignment was clearly defined. And what that helped us is improve the broker and customer service. So in this instance, we can see the different comparison, where it worked well, where it didn't. And it's quite critical that when organizations are embarking on this journey, it's not only about the bottom line, but about the entire value chain, how that's impacted. So successful assurance in outsourcing in assurance is not about transferring responsibility, but it's about expanding capability, about expanding the ecosystem and leveraging off the best ecosystem. And the key question now comes, so if the insurer in this case retains accountability, where do you fit in? And why is this even relevant to you? One could argue as a broker, simply put, if I have professional indemnity cover, then I don't need to carry the responsibility. But that's not quite true. Because when the value chain is disrupted, everyone is disrupted. And in this instance, if you are customer facing, the customers are really interested in understanding the intricacies behind the scenes. You are customer facing, and if you are unable to deliver because you're a third party partner, the customer will hold you accountable. The customer will look to you. That leads to a breakdown in relationship. And we know with the use of technology, bad news spread like wildfire. So quite important to note is that as a third-party partner of OMI or any other insurer, the customer journey is quite important. It's one experience, but many players. The one that is customer-facing suffers the most, meaning brokers will suffer the most. If OMI is unable to deliver on our partnership, mainly you will suffer as a broker. Because the customer sees you, they don't understand what's happening in the background, and you, as a result of that, you will suffer. So whether there are data breaches, claims, disputes, the customer is not interested. They see you as the face of the organization. So it's quite important to note that as much as the accountability of third-party relationships from a governance, from a regulatory landscape sits with the insurer, as a broker, you will most definitely suffer the most. This is a ripple effect across the ecosystem, because not only that, but reputational exposure. So no participant is immune in the system. And what that does not only impact your current customer base, but it expands to future customers. You become known as that broker, as that brokerage that is unable to deliver. It only takes one customer who is not happy in the value chain to spread the word. Exercising oversight. So as much as the insurer is still accountable, the regulator still expects all participants in the value chain to understand their partners, how you partner up with them. So as much as an insurer mainly would do due diligence to ensure that the person or the organization they're partnering up with, it's also important for brokers to look internally and assess and ask the key question, should I be partnering up with this organization? Are they good for me? Are they going to deliver? Because as much as they're putting their reputation on the line, you are also putting your reputation on the line. So as much as I've said before, this risk sits with the insurer. You as a brokerage, you need to do your own due diligence as well, and not only look at the glitter and the glamour. Most importantly, it impacts the distribution. So governance failures become a relationship problem. Normally when we speak of governance, we speak of it in isolation, but it's not. It's integral to part of our business. It's in our day-to-day, in how we do things. It's not something that we tap on at the end of the month or whenever there's an audit. It is something that we do as part of our business. It's the way we do business. And failure to do that, in most instances, results in a breakdown of relationship. If your partner does not deliver, it means you cannot trust them. If you cannot trust them, chances are you're going to terminate that relationship. Whether you're the brokerage, you're the insurer, you're the UMA, the trust is gone. A well-governed ecosystem gives brokers a real edge in line with AI. It gives you fast client services where you've got streamlined processes. You're no longer going through 20 to 40 call centers just to get your claim registered. It gives you better customer experience. When your ecosystem is designed seamlessly to deliver, your customers will feel the difference at a touch point, more so these days, where customers need instant gratification. Where a customer registers a claim, they expect feedback immediately. They want to know when their claim has been processed. They want to know if they need additional requirements. They don't want to have to call. And when you fail to deliver, unfortunately, the market to a certain extent is saturated with many insurers, and clients will tend to walk out because someone else out there gives them that seamless touch, that ease of doing business. Specialized capabilities. One wants access to niche underwriting and risk expertise. Being the norm or doing the basics is no longer good enough. And ecosystems enable that. And trusting and making sure that those ecosystems are well built is becoming imperative in the way we do business. Operational efficiency. One does not want to submit a claim 3-4 times before it's acknowledged. You want reduced duplication. You want shared platforms. And ultimately, you want to drive your cost down. There is no point in trying to build an ecosystem that's going to cost you a lot more than what is the cost of doing business. So good governance ultimately is meant to enable that. So when we look at ecosystems, let us not look at them negatively, but what they can deliver for us and how we can design our ecosystem. Currently, governance has been viewed as a deterrence to growth. But when one looks at it, it's meant to actually, as we scale ecosystems, as we invest, as Yaku has alluded to, in artificial intelligence, governance is meant to enable that. It's meant to remove, an environment that's got too much red tape. But how do you evolve and move with the business? How do we scale up? How do we make sure we expedite those partnerships that are critical for the business? Because if you take too long to bring if you take too long to bring a third party on books, someone else will take them from your hands. So it's quite important that when we look at governance, we only not look at it from a red tape perspectives, but how does it enable the business? How does governance play a key role in artificial intelligence? What's most important is when we look internally, what is Old Mutual Insure's commitment in terms of active governance, in terms of accountability, where it relates to third parties? Part of our plan is around strategic partner enablement. So having a compelling third-party value proposition, which some of our brokers can attest to, that empowers our partners to deliver for customers is imperative and is one of our key strategic objectives. And obviously having governance frameworks that evolve with the current operating model. So as Yaku has talked about artificial intelligence, our governance models in terms of how we contract, how we expedite bringing third parties, how we assess third parties, how we enable third parties becomes quite critical. It's not an after the fact. And making sure that we remove the red tape and put the green tape forward. And ultimately shared accountability. So while the regulator would look at the insurer when it comes to third party and outsourcing, it is quite important that as we partner up going forward and currently, it is a shared accountability culture. It will have a ripple effect if one person or one individual, one organization in the ecosystem does not deliver and does not measure up to what is expected of them. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if there are any questions in the chat. I will have a look now. Okay, I don't see any questions, any comments. I think maybe in the chat, if I, sorry, there we are. maybe I can get a view of how your organizations are managing third parties. What has been that key connecting element for you? There's a comment around CPD, which I'll provide, give feedback on. There aren't many questions. I'll have a look later on. Thank you so much. Carol, over to you.
Thank you very much, Faithful. Appreciate that update, and it was great hearing some more about the regulatory environment, and we really appreciate the input. Comments are updated throughout the chat, so the speakers can check in, and also on the CN&CO website, where we post the blog about the event afterwards. Then a couple of questions, if this will be available. As always, will be available on CN&CO events and the YouTube channel for you to re-watch anything or pass it on to any of your colleagues that may want to watch it afterwards. Next up, we've got another industry stalwart who's going to be joining us. We always enjoy her updates because she is so super smart, super connected, and super passionate about the industry. Next up is Sam from the FIA. And I actually want to look at Sam's title. I just think she's in charge of everything, but she's Head of Legal and Regulatory Affairs. And Sam will be giving us a view from the FIA, our very valued industry partners. Over to you, Sam.
Good morning and welcome to InsureTalk. As I'm sure many of you know, I'm Samantha Williams, Head of Legal and Regulatory Affairs at the Financial Intermediaries Association, the FIA. This month, I want to cover a few key domestic regulatory developments before turning to what I think is a highlight worth dwelling on: the World Federation of Insurance Intermediaries, or WFII, World Council, which the FIA hosted in Cape Town in March. So from a domestic standpoint, and starting with the COFI Bill, Cabinet has approved the submission of the Conduct of Financial Institutions Bill, or COFI, to Parliament at its meeting on the 25th of March 2026. The bill, in summary, is now formally before Parliament, and a consultation period will follow. The FIA has requested an extended comment period, as the last time industry had sight of the full bill was 2021. A transition period of approximately 3 years is anticipated after enactment, albeit it's expected that this could be even longer. On an employment equity, BBBE, labour law front, the boosted court application on the employment equity regulations was heard on the 22nd of April 2026, and we are awaiting a formal update. On the BBBE code amendments, the comment period closed on the 30th of March, and the FIA made a submission and hosted a successful webinar on the changes for members. The FIA also made a submission in respect to the Labour Law Amendment Bill. Both matters are being monitored and members will be kept informed. From a PAPIA and FIC perspective, the final regulations on the processing of health information under PAPIA took effect on the 6th of March. While the primary obligations fall on insurers, schemes, and administrators, brokers should also ensure they familiarise themselves with their obligations with regard to the processing of health information. On the FIC and AML front, developments continue ahead of the next FATF on-site evaluation expected in 2027, and members should ensure their AML or CFT obligations remain current, because South Africa could land back on the grey list just as quickly as we came off if we don't meet our obligations in this regard. Right. And now moving on to the WFII World Council, and this really is the highlight. In late March, the FIA hosted the World Federation of Insurance Intermediaries annual meeting in Cape Town, only the second time this has been hosted in South Africa, and brought together delegates from 5 continents across a packed 3-day program. We wish to give specific thanks to CN&CO, and specifically Llewellyn du Plessis and his team, who managed the event on behalf of the FIA and the WFII, and truly did us proud. What made this meeting particularly valuable was the quality of substantive engagement. Jonathan Dixon, Secretary General of the IAIS, addressed delegates in person, and his message to intermediaries was a clear one. You are at the front line of market conduct and consumer protection. Your role aligns closely with supervisory objectives, and your associations have a constructive and recognized place in shaping global standards. That kind of direct affirmation from the IAIS matters, and it reflects years of consistent engagement by the WFII on behalf of its member associations. FSCA Deputy Commissioner Fazana Badat also addressed the meeting, providing delegates with valuable context on South Africa's Twin Peaks framework and our outcomes-based supervisory approach, and in doing so, positions South Africa as a credible and sophisticated voice in the international conversation. The themes that emerged from the broader delegate discussions will resonate with our members here at home. Artificial intelligence, or AI, and its impact across the insurance value chain. The affordability of digital transformation for SME intermediaries. Persistent protection gaps, particularly around natural catastrophes. Regulatory burden and the need for proportionality. And finally, ongoing disintermediation pressure, with the value of professional intermediation very much a live debate globally. What struck me most was how consistent the challenges are across jurisdictions. The questions our members are asking about their role, their viability, their regulatory environment are the same questions being asked in Europe, Latin America, and Asia Pacific. That shared experience is itself a resource, and the WFII is a mechanism through which we access it. Hosting this meeting in Cape Town was a genuine milestone for the FIA and for South Africa's standing in the global intermediary community. And that is the update for May 2026. For full details of all the matters that I've touched on today, please do look at our FIA member communications. Thank you so much for listening to InsureTalk. Stay informed and stay compliant.
Thank you very much, Sam. Always great to hear from you and the FIA team. I think one of the problems we have after the conference that you guys hosted is that you're going to be asked to do it more regularly and not once every couple of years because you showed the guys such a good time and it was really valuable. So thank you very much for all that you and the FIA team do for us. And as you said, encourage everybody, if you're not receiving the FIA communications, please make sure that you do. You can hop on their website. We've also got the FIA Insights magazine that's coming out, both the digital and the print edition. So be sure to keep an eye out for all the articles within the FIA Insight. And there's some innovations that Lalani and the team from the FIA have brought to the magazine. So give your feedback to the FIA on what you'd like to see more of in that magazine as well. Next up, we've got Rianette, who is even more excited than normal, and that's saying a lot for Rianette, because she's always excited, always passionate, but as we know, we are in the current season of The Insurance Apprentice, live on TV, and fantastic reaction, so look forward to hearing from Rianette an update from FA News and The Insurance Apprentice. Over to you, Rianette.
Hello everyone and welcome to InsureTalk. It's absolutely great to be back as always. I want to start with what's dominating conversations in the non-life space right now, because if you look at what has been coming through on FA News over the past weeks, there are a few themes that keep showing up. Climate risk, infrastructure pressure, construction and commercial risk, renewables, cyber and data compliance, claims, rising excesses, and the very real question of how brokers help clients understand risk before something goes wrong. And then, of course, the weather happened again. The Western Cape, George, Mossel Bay, Knysna, and parts of the Garden Route have had a really difficult time with the storms, flooding, road closures, mudslide, and infrastructure damage. At this stage, I have not seen a final insurance industry damage number that we can confidently quote, but the early indication is quite clear. Assessors will be busy, claims teams will be under pressure, and once again, we are reminded that weather risks is no longer something we can just talk about in theory. It is landing in people's homes, businesses, vehicles, and communities. Recent reports noted severe flooding across several provinces, a natural disaster declaration, and thousands of structures affected, while some news sources specifically warned that insurers and assessors should prepare for significant activity around Mossel Bay, George, and Knysna. And that links directly to the bigger non-life conversation. Risk is becoming more visible, more expensive, and more interconnected. On FA News, we've seen recent non-life themes around construction risk, mixed-use housing claims, rising excesses, grid exclusions, renewable energy opportunities, agricultural risk, protest risk, trade credit in a constrained economy, and climate change reshaping homeowner risk. The broker message in all of this is quite simple. This is not the time for clients to guess what they are covered for. This is the time to ask better questions. What happens if my solar system causes a fire? What happens if my business cannot trade after a flood? What happens if my building has shared responsibilities? What happens if my excess has become unaffordable? What happens if I only discover an exclusion at claim stage? These are not small admin issues. These are trust issues. The compliance and regulatory space is also not quiet. COFI is still very much part of the conversation, and FA News recently covered the COFI wait-and-see discussion after the FSCA conference in March. We are also seeing strong themes around AI, ethics, data privacy, trust, and compliance. The point was made that insurers now face both general data privacy obligations and sector-specific cyber resilience requirements. So compliance is not a once-off exercise. It is becoming part of how trust is built and protected. That brings me to CPD. If you still need to do your CPD hours, please prioritize it now. Don't leave it for the last minute and then get crossed with platforms like FA News. Once everyone in South Africa logs in at the same time and the system starts breathing through a paper straw. We love you, but we also need you to help yourself a little bit. So please get it done. Pace yourself and don't wait until panic becomes your learning strategy. Now let me move to the Insurance Apprentice because we are right in the middle of it. The next episode is bright and I'm really excited about this one. The task is called Protect the Life You're Building. And the heart of it is powerful. How do we reposition car and home insurance so that it carries the same sense of dignity, responsibility and pride that funeral cover has in South Africa? Not as a grudge purchase, not as a technical product, but as something that protects your livelihood, your family, your progress, and your future. Wait, let's quickly play the trailer and hopefully that will make you go and watch E-Extra on Saturday.
Next time, our teams face a challenge that goes beyond policies and premiums.
I'm not looking for a product. I'm looking for a shift in a narrative.
Some will capture the message perfectly, others may miss the mark.
People who don't need insurance have it.
I don't agree with that. You understand black sex, right? Are you black?
You don't have to be condescending, all right?
That's such a stupid question.
Their presentations will be scrutinized like never before.
Was there anything redeeming about this group?
No.
Next time on The Insurance Apprentice.
I hope you enjoyed that. So after that, we then moved to Old Mutual Insure, where contestants had to deal with real broker client challenges, slow service, clients feeling forgotten, digital doubt, and needs that were overlooked. The wheel decided the problem, but the task is really about whether technology and AI can improve the client experience without removing the human-broker relationship. Jaco, who was a speaker today, was the judge on this one. So if you want to see a bit more of Jaco, next week, Saturday. Then we get to the FSCA task, which ends in a regulatory hearing. Contestants represent either the FSCA enforcement team or the insurer defense team in a case about whether a fictional insurer treated customers fairly when selling and rejecting claims on a flexible home contents product. It brings PPR, TCF, affordability, exclusions, excesses, broker fees, and customer understanding into one very practical debate. What I really love about this season is how the education and awareness element has come so much more to the fore. We've changed things up and it shows. The tasks are not just about who can present well. They are about whether contestants can take insurance concept and make them understandable, human, and relevant to the ordinary South African. And for the under 35s listening today, I think it's worth mentioning that the prize pool is around 850,000, maybe a bit more. It's massive. But the bigger prize, in my view, because that all 10 gets, is the platform. It is the exposure, the learning, the network, and the opportunity to become part of a bigger industry story. The finale is aired on Saturday, 14 June, and then we will know who the next insurance apprentice is. Before then, we will have some brilliant episodes to go. And on a lighter note, one unexpected bonus of being on eExtra, that is where we are now, is that we've all become quite aware of what else is on this channel. Let's just say that there's been some quite entertaining conversations behind the scenes about some of the shows we've seen around our slot. Insurance people notices everything, apparently. So then, looking ahead at the AI conference is also not far away. If you have not registered yet, whether you plan to attend virtually or in person, please consider doing so. It remains one of the key industry gatherings, and for the non-live space especially, there are rooms where conversations turn into action. So, if I had to wrap up today's message into one thought, it would be this. Non-life insurance is being pulled into the real world more visibly than ever. Weather, infrastructure, cyber risk, AI, compliance, affordability, claims expectations, and client trust are all colliding. And in the middle of that sits the broker, not as a nice to have, but as someone who helps clients make sense of risk before the loss happens. That is the opportunity to move the conversation from what does this cost me to what does this protect for me? From do I really need this to what happens if I don't have it? And from insurance as a grudge purchase to insurance as part of resilience, dignity, and recovery. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for listening to me and enjoy the rest of your session.
The CN&CO team are proud to introduce the launch edition of the Insurance Conference Western Cape. Hosted at the beautiful Plaisir Wine Estate in the Cape Winelands, the Insurance Conference Western Cape takes place on the 20th and 21st of August 2026. This exclusive two-day gathering brings together brokers, insurers, underwriters, service providers, and industry decision-makers for thought-provoking conversation, strategic insight, and meaningful connection. Designed as a curated platform for collaboration and innovation, the conference creates space for the conversations, partnerships, and perspectives shaping the future of insurance in South Africa. From engaging discussions to high-value networking opportunities, the Insurance Conference Western Cape delivers an industry experience focused on insight, connection, and innovation. Registrations are now open. To secure your spot and find out more about the event, visit theinsuranceconference.co.za today. The Insurance Conference Western Cape. Insight, connection, innovation.
Yes.
Great update there from Rianette, and I love particularly Rianette reminding us of some of the other interesting content that's around the insurance apprentice slots. And as she mentioned, insurers, underwriters, the more we read, the more we listen, the more we experience, the more we're out there in the world, the better underwriters we all are. And so another place to pick up some tips. But great update there about the insurance apprentice and also overall in the insurance industry. Rianette always goes to a tremendous amount of trouble, and we really appreciate it. A little bit of a teaser there about the insurance conference that is up in August. As per that little intro, the insuranceconference.co.za is where you can find some more information. So one of the founders and initiators alongside Llewellyn from CN&CO Events of the insurance conference is Blake Dyson. Blake is well known to many people, not only because he has and continues to fulfill many roles within the insurance industry of which he's passionate, but quite simply because he's one of the nicest people around. Blake's involved with a number of charity initiatives and drives, passionate about trails. You'll see him not just getting really involved in Table Mountain, but in Love Our Trails and numerous outdoor activities. And Blake continues to try and find ways to add value to everybody that he engages with in the insurance industry. Blake's going to chat to us a little bit about the insurance directory and the insurance conference. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Blake.
Hello. Hello. Coral, thanks for the introductory and the kind words, and hello to everyone online. I always find it weird speaking online because I can't see faces, but I hope you can all hear me. Yeah, it's been an exciting week at CN&CO. For those of you that don't know, I'm Blake. I've been part of the CN&CO team for quite a while and been involved in many parts of the insurance industry with a history in publishing and financial services. And this week we've launched quite a lot of exciting things, or two main exciting things, which I want to share with you. But one of my passions, and I'm going to try to share a screen quickly, is the insurance directory. And so for those of you, I'm sure there's hundreds of you on here that have been part of the insurance directories from when it was started during COVID. And it started off the back of my history being in publishing in the financial services. And during COVID, everyone had to go work from home. And suddenly I was receiving daily messages of brokers trying to find contact details of underwriters and insurers. And so with that, I decided to make a mini little website while I had some time with a whole bunch of contact details and information for brokers. And then the website crashed and we ended up with too many feats on the website. And so I dived into this idea of creating something a bit more user-friendly. And so I asked a bunch of brokers and underwriters about what do we need to add value? And a couple of things stood out. The one thing was that brokers wanted a centralized platform to be able to find and research products and information, not just from the big insurers or the things that are shared because there's budget behind them, but from the smaller underwriters that are more niche and don't necessarily have the big budgets to market. So so the idea was to give them a platform, and then the other side was that these underwriters wanted a place to be able to update their profiles and their products, and as the world changes with climate change and everything else that's happening. So that's where it started, and before I knew it, we had this awesome website which gets thousands of brokers to it every month. And so the website's got a couple of really exciting parts to it. The primary thing is obviously the directory, where there's over 1,000 products, companies, and services listed, and you can search and read about it. The thing that's really exciting about it is when you search and you find a product, you can find the correct contact person. It's not going to a call center or a generic email. You go straight to go straight to the contact number or email address of the decision maker. The other side that we've added is the news portal, which has news, events, all the information that's going on in industry, not just the big stories, but also the smaller stories written by underwriters on topics from engineering and climate change and marine and everything else. And so you're able to search and find information for your clients. And then the last part of it is the print edition, which goes out every 2 years. And I'm blown away that we have like over 5,000 subscribers that sign up to this and want it. And the feedback's amazing. And we'll be printing one next year again. And for those that are coming to our conference in August, there'll be copies available for you there. But the exciting news is we just revamped our website and we've improved the user journey, and those that have listings now can go into this amazing dashboard and easily update it. And the other thing that we added in was an app. So now I'd encourage you all to scan this and download the web-based app onto your phone or your computer. And you'd be able to, without having to log in and search in Google to get information, it's right on your dashboard and you can use it. Please give us feedback. Please update anything. It's really a tool for the industry and we'd love all of your support. And to those that have been supporting us for the last couple of years, thank you so much. It's been overwhelming to see this once just a small little website as a passion project online turn into something quite big. So that's the first thing at CN&CO that we launched this week. And then the next thing we launched this week is our insurance conference happening in August. And for those of you that know us, myself personally and the CN&CO team, we've been involved in the insurance industry for a long time and have quite a lot of experience on the event hosting side and attending them and the network around it. And we've taken all that information and really tried to curate an event that focuses on business, that focuses on the networking and relationships, and takes the conversations not just from the gala dinner, but takes them back to the office, back home with us, and really leads to real business. And so this is a 2-day conference. The first day, the 20th, is a full day of incredible speakers, which we'll be sharing soon. And then the second day is really about engaging events, networking opportunities. So we have a morning trail run and breakfast. We have wine tasting, exclusive wine tasting with 4 wine farms, and there'll be key stakeholders and people from the industry at these events. There's also a paddle tournament, and there's opportunity for brands to get involved and curate or work with us to curate experiences for their top brokers, clients, and partners. But the most important really is that this is an exclusive and intimate event. We are limiting the number of sponsors, and we are not looking at having thousands of delegates at it, but rather a few hundred, and really focusing on those relationships. So I'd really encourage you, if you can, go to the website, sign up, book your ticket before they sold out. And if there are brands that want to get involved, reach out to myself or Llewellyn or Coral, and we'll gladly meet with you and try to put something together that really focuses on on the relationship side and the business side of it while we share and pass on amazing knowledge and insights into the industry. And that's really it from our side. I want to thank InsureTalk for this platform. I can't believe it's 64 episodes or events so far, and it's amazing what this one of the CN&CO products has done for the insurance industry. And I want to thank everyone that's been part of this journey and supports us, and reach out if there's any way we can help. And if you'd like to get involved in the insurance directory or the insurance conference, yeah, we'd love to partner. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Blake. And yeah, it's for me an interesting case study, AI and technology with Blake, who is such a people's person like this industry requires. But more than anybody that I know, Blake has grabbed the usage of AI with both hands to just be super efficient, to create capacity for everything else he does in his life. And he continues to push us at CN&CO to use AI in ways that enable us. So big thanks, Blake, and congratulations on the ongoing success with the insurance directory and the value that you and the directory add to the industry. On the conference, just a few points that I'd like to highlight. Whilst it's a 2-day conference, it's really 1 day with an optional second day, because we understand that people really are busy. So we encourage everybody to register for the 20th, which is the great speakers, and then an event late afternoon, early evening. Our partner from a transport perspective is Gauge. So if you're a Gauge client already, the transport will be free. Otherwise, it will be subsidized so that people can get transport from Cape Town city centre to the venue and back. And we'll give more details on that. And then the second day are the curated events that Blake spoke about. And whether that is us putting something together just for you and your staff, or you particular clients, or you joining one of our curated events, the exclusive wine tasting at venues like Ormond, Blazier, of course, themselves, phenomenal wines, or the paddle and a number of other activities. We'll be rolling all of those out to add as much value as possible to you. Unfortunately, there aren't any opportunities for sponsors to join as main sponsors because we are full. We're limiting tickets this year, and those already started selling fast and furious this week of launch, so please get your ticket. But there are opportunities for companies and individuals to get involved from an exhibition perspective, and so as Blake said, please be in touch with him or Llewellyn if you'd like to find out more about those opportunities that are still available. But look forward to welcoming you all the beautiful Blazier and adding real value to the industry. Our next speaker is also from OMI. He's the Senior Manager of Complex Claims, Non-Motor Liabilities and Rejection Reviews, and it is Nico Knop. And I love that we have got Nico now, because claims, as we all know, is really where the rubber hits the tar, and that is when we have to deliver. That is when we do what we say we're going to do. That is what our opportunity is, to deliver on the promise we make in policy documents. And it is people like Nico and his team that ensures that that is done fairly, efficiently, appropriately, and in the best interest of all concerned. So Nick has been in the short-term industry for a number of years, I think probably close to 30-odd years, if I'm not mistaken. He is an admitted attorney, so he holds a BProc and an LLB degree. He's got a higher certificate in tax law. He's completed numerous regulatory exams. He's done his MBA at Henley. And so not only from an academic perspective, but also practically, Nico has got tremendous experience in recoveries, motor salvage, vendor management, and he's managed successfully some really complex and interesting claims. Nico's going to be talking to us today about understanding replacement value conditions, and I'm really looking forward to this interesting topic. Nico, over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for those wonderful words. I really appreciate it. I have the honor to present the replacement value conditions as in the introduction, and it's the topic is quite relevant right now. As you guys know, we all are facing a lot of storm and catastrophe claims down in the coastal areas, and this specific condition may certainly come across as a claims handler. You will be encountering this condition, and I think it's important that we discuss, why the dispute arises with the specific clause. We'll just be discussing, what it means, how they work, where it goes wrong, why it goes wrong. But as with anything that's being explained, I have to give some T's and C's. I will only be addressing it in terms of the fire section. It's the OMI wording, and I'm aware that there are some other, wordings out in the market, which may differ from ours, and I accept that. If you have any sort of comments, please put it in the Q&A section, and we'll look at and especially how this thing works, how it sounds, and how to use it, how not to use it, and what happens when it goes wrong. There we go. So in terms of the roadmap today, we're going to talk about the indemnity, how that works, the replacement value versus the reinstatement, the conditions, how it works, how it doesn't work. Again, we'll be discussing those. I'm sorry if I think I may have lost the presentation. I do apologize. Right, guys, I'm just trying to share the presentation again.
We can't see the presentation on our
side.
I
do apologize. I can't see where I'm at the moment. I do apologize for that. Okay, happy with that. And then how that works, I think the big issues we always face with this condition is the expectations, which is always a big problem from the insured. And then how average applies under insurance, and this is some of the big areas of concern for people. Sorry, guys, I am struggling a bit here. I can't see my own presentation, so I do apologize, and I'll try and get it back in.
Nico, do you want to maybe stop your screen share and just reshare and see if that helps you?
Yeah, sorry, guys. It just suddenly changed out of the blue. Come on. You guys can let me know if you can see it now, if it now makes a bit more sense.
Yes, just go to presentation mode for me, please.
Sorry, it is in present. I am in presentation mode.
There we go.
Thanks a lot. Sorry for that, guys. Okay, so why this matters is, as mentioned before, is the expectation between the gap between the cash versus the replace, and the insured, the expectation that they are getting the full cash for the new replacement of the damaged items. The problem is there are conditions that apply to the replacement value conditions, and if you go back to your fire section, you'll see the replacement value conditions, one of the clauses there in those sections. And these conditions certainly create delays, and there's a change of the outcome. It's also important that with the replacement value conditions, average is not suddenly going to fall away or disappear. It still applies as with other sections where average is applicable. And what's also an issue is that betterment is not covered. Now, for those who have used or have implemented or should have used this clause, you would understand that when betterment happens, it certainly causes a large amount of delays. And it happens a lot when the insured in that moment decides that he wants to change the property. For example, he now wants to do a bit of an expansion, which is not part of the replacement value conditions. And once that step happens with the insured, your file or your claim file stat is going to go absolutely the wrong way. And what also happens is now the insured has to get new architects or architect to draft new building plans. And depending on the specific municipality the insured's in, as a rule, when you rebuild what you had, you normally don't need new building plans to be approved. Now the insured wants to expand, like I mentioned, and he's got an architect in. Now you've got your claim is being pushed out 2, 3, 4 weeks. Those plans are being submitted. Again, now you're waiting for the municipality to approve those building plans. That's another 4, 5 weeks. Suddenly, what was a reinstatement period of, let's say, 5 months are now being pushed out comfortably to 7, 8 months. And now your claim file stat is what you were expecting at 4 months is now going to end up at 6 and 7 months, which is part of the problem with betterment and insured taking this decision without talking to you as the claim handler, or at least via your loss adjuster regarding these things. The principle of indemnity. Now, all are aware, and for those who don't, who are new to insurance, insurance is indemnity. You're in the same financial position that you should be before the loss. You are no better, and you are simply no worse. And with replacement value conditions, if you can't implement or complete the listen to me now, this replacement value conditions, and you can't meet those requirements, what will happen is that your claim will default back into the indemnity basis. And that can happen. And there are examples, and I'll use some example. The insured elected his reinstatement, and normally you have to start your reinstatement as soon as possible without delay. And the insured sits and sits, or something happens, and lo and behold, the reinstatement doesn't get implemented within a certain time period, and then the claim defaults back to indemnity basis. And that can happen and has happened before. Now, indemnity in practice, how does indemnity work? Normally, it's the new item, and then we allow for depreciation. We look at the age of the items, the wear and tear that the building or the specific item has encountered, and the condition of the item. Typically, and I'll use an example. Let's say it's a domestic risk, and you don't have those, a commercial risk, and the insured now wants to determine the indemnity value of the property. You will then look at specific parts of that building, and you will then value it based on the age of the building, the condition. So that's typically what we'll look at. Furthermore, the market value. What's very important. Market value is not indemnity value. What we often find, and you may have encountered it as a claims handler, is that you'll hear from the client that he saw an estate agent and he said his building is worth 10 million, and I'm using a number just a random, or you'll say or they'll say that the bank came and did an evaluation, it was also 10 million. What must be understood when an estate agent specifically gives you a value, it looks at area, current similar buildings and similar prices, the market pressures, which is not really how indemnity is determined. The same with the bank, and sometimes the bank will, and I'm speculating here, the bank will use a value which could be what you owe the bank in terms of any sort of agreements or loan agreements that you may have. So in that regard, brokers and clients need to be very careful to use estate agent valuations or bank evaluations to say, well, this is that's indemnity, and that's how we determine it. Just be careful and avoid those pitfalls. Also determining your sum insured. That's in this regard, sum insured is the replacement value of that building. If you had to build that right now, what that would be. And that's the type of advice I would suggest brokers would give their clients. Typically, our policy will exclude the land. Most policies exclude the land itself, but there may or may not be policies that will include it. It's possible, but ours normally does not. And remember, the focus is on the financial interest of the insured to the property. Replacement value versus reinstatement. Replacement is normally new for old, and there's certainly conditions that apply, and it's also very section specific. Not every section has this condition. Like I mentioned, I'm talking rather about the fire section. Other sections may or may not have it. So do be careful that it's not applicable across the entire policy. Reinstatement, typically applies to more common for buildings. Remember, it's not automatic, and reinstatement is not a cash settlement. And reinstatement also doesn't have the conditions that replacement value has, and that has to be kept in mind in terms of two different sections. What actually replacement value means, for those of you who can see the screen, it is to replace. What you have to do is you have to replace with a new and equivalent item. It's definitely on a like for like, definitely not a superior product. Normally it definitely does not allow for upgrades. But I have to pause here and indicate that we often are approached by the insured via the broker that the insured wants to upgrade a specific item or the building. And as a rule, we do allow that, with the understanding, obviously, that the insurer or our liability is limited to the similar item or like for like. So the insured will then have to pay for that upgrade out of pocket. So that's an uninsured portion. So we do allow it, but it is a conversation. You obviously don't want to find out afterwards if that's happened, because then it becomes a more awkward conversation. But we do keep our doors open for that conversation, just that the insured understands who's responsible for which amount for that upgrade. And as you can see, if the reinstatement condition fails, then the policy would or the claim would defer back to indemnity basis. Now, in terms of what are those policy conditions, just as a I think we'll deal with it in the next screen. The conditions are, the insured has to make his election to reinstate within a certain period, and normally that would be set in the wording. If you still have it open on the screen, on your other screen, we have the paper printout, you'll see it's normally within a 6-month period. Again, it depends on the policy you have. The insured has to make that election, and he has to start the reinstatement fairly quickly or without delay. Those are some of the words that are being used. What's important here is that the insured needs to keep the proof of spend. It still has to be like for like. And as a claims handler, when you do have this file, it's very similar to being a project manager. There are certain steps that the insured and his builder or his contractor have to adhere to. And the most important thing is the evidence of that reinstatement has to commence. Often or not, we have to caution that the insured should appoint a proper registered builder to make sure that those expenses are managed properly and the expense records are kept along as the project continues. As mentioned before, what are typically the key conditions of the reinstatement value condition? It's start without undue delay. It's no point insured elects reinstatement, but nothing happens. As second point notes, some policies do indicate that this project must be completed within a certain period. And that does cause conflict with the insured, and it's very important that these discussions are held with the broker and the insured present, that they understand that the policy requires certain things to happen at a certain time, and that the project must be finished by a certain time. Again, those costs that the insured or the builder incurs must be incurred, and evidence and proof of that must be kept as in order to show how those monies have been utilized. And the purpose, again, as mentioned, for the same purpose, there must be no betterment. But as previously mentioned, betterment is a discussion with the insured, and there's understanding of what portions of that will be uninsured and what of those will be paid by the insurer. Under insurance and average, it does happen, and it's important that the replacement wording does not fix the specific issue. It's still applicable, and the insured remains responsible for the difference, as with any other part of a policy where there's average applicable or under insurance. The insured has to still pay for those. I'm not going to bore you guys with this example, but typically this is what it looks like. Reinstatement's 10, some insured is 5. There's a 50% average, and the insured's then responsible for the balance of those funds. Typically, and what we do, and this may be a question someone has in the Q&A, and I can't see those, and we can deal with it later, is but how do you do reinstatement where there is a shortfall? So as a practical example, this is discussed with the broker and insured, and a provisional sum is paid to the insured to allow them to start the reinstatement process, and that is checked by the QS, and partial payments are then made as those proof of payments are coming back to us. And in this case, let's make it $1 million. We'll pay the insured at 250,000 upfront to assist with the reinstatement, and once the 250,000 rand has been utilized as in terms of the project, and the QS is satisfied with those expenses, we will then continue with a second interim payment. And again, the QS will check on the progress of that rebuild or reinstatement project and give us the sign off, and then we'll make those trans or call payments until the $1 million is spent by the insured in terms of our liability, and the QS's controls have to be very clear that there's no work being done that's funded by the other part of the under or the average. So it's something we still do, and which the policy clearly caters for. Some of the questions that has popped up to us during this process: why not simply pay the whole thing and recover? As you can see, that is a very difficult process to fund the whole project and claw it back from the insured. It's really not something we keen to enter into. It causes disputes with the insured and who was responsible for what and what was understood, and really leaves the insurer normally out of pocket and in a very difficult situation to try and recover those monies, because you normally don't get it back. Why settlement is normally staged? It's important that we make these progress payments because it enforces an activity, as what the clause requires. It forces that rebuilding process to start, and we then call for that evidence. It absolutely keeps the project moving. You really do not want the project to get stalled halfway through, because the insured had all the monies that you paid, and unfortunately did not utilize the funds as indicated. And then specifically what you have to do is, as I mentioned in the previous slide, you include your QS and the engineer to ensure that there's no real scope creep or there's betterment that it wasn't discussed with the insurer or the engineer before the time. How we normally handle a settlement is we confirm the full amount of the reinstatement. As mentioned, for example, let's say the reinstatement is 10 million all inclusive. We then determine what the indemnity value is at the same time, or would have been or is. We then pay the indemnity value to the insured to assist with the start of the project. What we don't want to do is leave the insured out of pocket and then enforcing a clause and is unable to actually comply because he simply doesn't have the funds. So we allow that provisional indemnity payment up front. And then the QS and engineer will bring us back the evidence of completion of that project, and we'll pay on account then where appropriate following thereafter. And as that costs are proven, we will release those funds. And as the reinstatement is complete at the end, we'll get the QS and engineer to give us that information, and we'll make the final payment when this project is complete. And a question that may be in someone's mind is that, so do you also appoint the contractor and do you manage it from that from that side? So you are then basically reinstating as the insurer. There are different philosophies out there from different insurers. Ours is not to, as a rule, appoint that contractor. That relationship sits for us between the insured and the contractor, and we will manage that in the payment process, as you can as mentioned before. So you may elect to appoint a contractor. It certainly does make the communication, the communication channels are easier to manage. However, we are not always that keen to end up marrying that entire project and every fault or error that the contractor makes. But that is always based on a claim by claims basis. So there may be times where we do elect to reinstate where we believe it's in our interest to do so. But as a rule, we don't do that. Some misconceptions, and this there are some things that are or some ideas that some insureds have, and it's a misconception that it's information that's been spread through word of mouth and how things work, and often exist in the insured's mind, and sometimes it could also be information that as a broker that you may have about how the reinstatement condition clause actually operates, and I'd like to discuss those. So replacement value is cash for new, and again, it's not. The replacement value condition clearly requires that activity to start from the insured to reinstate. And again, as mentioned, that fund is not, the whole fund of 10 million is not transferred to the insured. It is paid in tranches or in part payment as the project progresses. So that is a misconception that happens a lot. It causes friction, and it's very important from a claims perspective that the conversation is held with the broker and maybe the insured included very early in the file or in the claim, that if the insured elects replacement value, that how that will actually work when we are ready to, when the insured is ready to reinstate. So that it removes that, but I was expecting the full 10 million rand to be in my bank account, and that's where the friction we experience in this process. It's definitely like for like, as mentioned before, and there's no upgrades allowed. And again, the insured may want to see this as an opportunity to improve the building or get a different machine. Again, that's a conversation you must have with the client and the broker very early in the claim file to explain that it's like for like. And if there are considerations about upgrades or change in building specs and new and improved, that it's explained what is covered and what's not. And if the project is delayed, that it can cause some problems in terms of the insurer's responsibility following that. Time limits, another misconception that time limits are always extended. That is certainly not the case. What must be understood is that the time limits are normally indicated to us by the experts, the builder, the QS. They will indicate that the reinstatement might be 4 months or 5 months. And the moment there are extensions that are requested, there will have to be a clear explanation and reasons given why the project is not being kept to on time. And if those reasons are valid, then obviously those time limits will be extended. Let's say, for example, you had excessive rain and you were busy reinstating as with, I think it'll be a fair conversation and a good point to say, I couldn't complete the reinstatement within the 4 months, as the last month we were hit by huge floods. We need to extend by another month. And those are conversations we would have with the broker and the client to get understanding and with the QS to see how much more time is needed to extend. And some of the other misconceptions is that, as previously mentioned, replacement will remove underinsurance. If you read the clause, ours certainly does not remove it. The insured still remains responsible for that uninsured portion. And these are some of the things that just to keep in mind. Simple actions to assist. I think some of these things that we can do or can be done to certainly get the friction out of it up front. But I mean, this is true as for any policy. The sum insured needs to be very accurate, or very accurate is not necessary. And with replacement value conditions, it's the replacement of the item. That's the sum insured. Again, that, as I mentioned before, there where the insured informed by his estate agent, oh, this thing is worth 10 or 8 million in this area, or the bank's valuation. I think it's important that the client spend some time with his broker to make sure that it's very, very important that that replacement item is well priced. If you look at plant and machinery, many of the clients that we have and that many of you insure have machines that are made in Germany or in China. Now, once that is understood, then you've got the exchange rate pressure. And considering there's a war, you don't know if that machine is going to come the way it normally would have in terms of transport. So you've got the import costs, you've got transport costs, and then normally what happens to those machines are you also need someone to come and commission those machines. And normally that person or team is flown in from China or Germany, wherever it's made, and they have to spend a week here commissioning those machines. So those are costs that needs to be included in that sum insured. And I know I'm preaching to the converted, but insureds are not always keen to have this conversation because it takes time, and they have to sit and they have to go through those numbers. But it's always better to have that conversation now than to have that conversation about a 20 or 30% average a year down the line. But again, I know you guys are aware of it. What else can be done very well? Clear scope about how this project will work. Early appointments. If the insured elects reinstatement, he needs to get his approved builder appointed very early, as soon as possible. Make sure there are contracts in place, that he has insurance or that they have insurance for any contracts or issues that they may have on site. So those things really remove the friction. And as long as the insured also keeps good evidence, again, we keep coming back to this point as well. Those expenses incurred, what's happened, what's changed, what have you paid for what? When the QS or the engineer comes to site to validate how the funds have been utilized, it removes those, oh, but I didn't keep the invoice, oh, we're not sure, this was cash. Those things causes friction, and again, delays that, oh, but we need the next payment to start the next phase of the project. So just some simple, easy tips just to remove some of the friction. Again, practical steps. Agree your scope early. Make sure that everybody knows how this project will run. If they, again, and we spoke about this before, if the extension is requested, it's very important that that extension is requested early and in writing, and discuss it with your insurer. What an extension can do to an insured is, or an insurer, is unnecessary extensions. Means, for example, on a commercial policy, you may be paying the insured for loss of rent. Now, what would have been a 4-month project, and now you also have an insured that also wants to do some upgrades, and he wants to change the project. So now, as an insurer, what you would have had as a 4-month project, now you've got, oh no, the insured's made changes. Now he's got to put in building plans with the local municipality. It now, I said, it becomes a 6-month or 8-month project, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Now, as an insurer, you have to fund that loss of rent or not. And that's a conversation that you need to have with the broker and the insured, that why is the extension required? What's happened? What's changed? Is the extension reasonable? And if it's fine, and how are we going to handle those unintended other expenses that the insurer is not considering, or the insurer needs to consider when the extension is requested? Third point, your proof of spend, keep it nice and clean, and escalate early for the QS and the engineer for input and for changes. It's really important that the insurer takes the QS engineering on board and let them help manage this project so that everybody stays online and there's no scope creep and the costs stay where they are. Just for those who want to know about the Renasa versus Watson case, where this is typically what happened. There was a fire claim that destroyed machinery. There was a repudiation that occurred on alleged arson. The dispute went to litigation, and the Supreme Court confirmed that they have to accept liability. What happened, and practically what happened here is, at the time, Renasa insisted that the insured then reinstates, but the insured wasn't able to do so because of lack of funds. And what you don't want to do is end up in the same situation as what that case was. And the court found that Renasa should have assisted the insured. And again, as mentioned, as each insurer can decide what that indemnity, we use indemnity payment as placing the insured in some funds, and you may decide a different number in that regard. But it's our view that it is important to place the insured with some funds. And it's also important that the clause doesn't require you to place the insured in funds. But following the Renasa judgment, it's our process that we do by placing the insured with some funds to start the project. And I'm happy. This was great. I didn't see any questions. I'm sure if there are any questions in the Q&A, I will not answer them, but I will promise you that I will. And thank you very much for your time. Again, any questions, please place them in the Q&A. And thank you for the opportunity, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you very much for that, Nico. As I said in introducing you, I love all the expertise and information we get from experienced claims folk like you in the industry. And I particularly enjoy you taking the time to share your knowledge and being so generous with it. Because the experience that people like you have built up in the claims part of our industry is vital, and a great opportunity for some youngsters in the industry to learn more. So thank you very much for that. Really fascinating and interesting information. We are now moving to our last speaker for the day. A reminder that today's event's been made possible by Old Mutual Insurance, our event partner, our association partner, FIA, and then our media partner, FA News. A big thank you to all of you for your contribution in making today's event possible. Also, as I said, this is the last InsureTalk of the current CPD cycle, but we look forward to seeing you back again next month. So, concluding speaker is somebody that I know well because we work together at Easy Equities. Lange is the head of compliance for Easy Equities, in fact for the whole Purple Group, and it's been my absolute privilege to work with Lange the last couple of years. Lange is a former Deputy Director in Banking and Financial Stability at National Treasury, and that's why Lange likes to wear a jacket and tie, talk slowly and softly, because he comes from a very corporate background, but a highly respected individual who's done some amazing work at National Treasury. At that role, he was responsible for financial sector policy and legislation, and that included the Financial Sector Regulation Act, which ushered in Twin Peaks as South Africa's core regulatory framework, as we all know. Lange has been instrumental in the drafting of a number of financial sector laws, and he's really passionate about using compliance as an enabler for business. And that's one of the things that I value most about Lange, is making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, not as a handbrake, but as an enabler in business. We asked Lange to join us today to talk a little bit about COFI, and really how financial institutions, all of us, should prepare for this, because it is, and already is, but will affect all of us. And so Lange, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us and for talking to us about COFI.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you, everybody, for joining this session. This is my first time at InsureTalk. I've been following the previous speakers, very insightful sort of pointers from an insurance perspective. So thank you. And yes, I'll just delve straight into the presentation. Okay, and I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Can everybody see?
Yes, you can just go to full presentation mode. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, COFI, it is coming. I will sort of share that during my time at Treasury, it was a bill that was developed, and I did consult from a banking and financial markets perspective on the bill, and good to see that it is making its way now to Parliament. It hasn't been tabled yet. I checked before this session, so it hasn't been tabled before the National Assembly and then to the Finance Committee, but we will keep track of where it is. On your screen currently, you can just see the presentation themes and what I'll be covering. Okay, first thing, just an overview of the bill. So the objectives of the bill are really aimed towards moving away from tick box rules-based regulation and more towards outcomes that are sort of customer focused, in line with protecting financial customers, making sure that there's fair treatment of financial customers. But the difference between what we know now in phase and other regulatory instruments and what the bill will be ushering in is that this is in primary legislation and a very strong indicator of where the regulation is headed, and also that the regulator is going to be armed with some very strong teeth. And I just also want to just say to everybody on the call that this dissection of the bill that I did is really from the bill as well as the policy paper. So these are the regulators' views, intentions, and supervisory and licensing approaches as envisaged in COFI. And yeah, so that's in essence what I did. So nothing of my opinion on the bill, but really just a dissection and to help with how one should approach COFI when it comes. So starting early, in other words. I think the key factor here that I want to highlight on this slide is that the retirement reforms are going to be very extensive. So the Pension Funds Act, as we know it, will be the Retirement Funds Act. Public sector funds will be included within the regulatory ambit of the FSCA. Employers, yeah, quite scary. Employers will become supervised entities, and obviously the detail will be outlined probably in conduct standards, but those are some of the glaring proposals that will be in the bill. And fund self-administration will also be a licensed activity. That's just the other thing that I want to highlight on this slide. Okay, market conduct regulation, why it matters and what is it? In a nutshell, market conduct regulation is how a financial institution participates in the market through the delivery of its financial services and its financial products, and how essentially it interacts with its customers. The underlying foundation that's introduced in the bill is really treating customers fairly, having disclosures that are transparent, that are clearly and simply articulated, and also building a strong trust with your client base and ensuring that the products and the services that you provide are suitable. So I see a hand. Elsie Strauss. I see a hand raised. Okay, I think I'll continue. So those are the key sort of conduct principles from a TCF perspective that the bill is wanting to put forward to industry, and also then to empower the regulator. And if one looks at the current conduct standards, the current phase directives, none of them go to this extent to give the regulator the powers to regulate from a conduct perspective, and also to give them more coverage. So what you are now going to be seeing is that the extent to which COFI will apply and the extent to which the FSCA is going to be regulating financial institutions is also going to be inclusive of financial institutions that are traditionally regulated by the Prudential Authority. So that would be insurers and banks. So they will also then be brought under the conduct ambit of COFI, because this is conduct legislation. Okay, hard coding outcomes in legislation. First one, and it's not by mistake that this presentation repeats treating customers fairly, because that is really the key theme of the bill. And from this slide, what I wanted to outline is that the coverage of the conduct approach, the treating customers fairly conduct approach, is not just going to be retail focused. So one obviously always thinks TCF, it's my clients, the complaints that they raise, how I handle them, how quickly I handle them, etc. But in this instance, through the COFI bill, the extension of the FSCA supervisory and regulatory approach is going to be inclusive of institutional or corporate customers. How this is going to be outlined, I think it's going to be very, very interesting, because the regulatory approach typically, even in the UK and Australia, has always been that while these are sophisticated clients, they've got strong legal representation, well-skilled and strong control owners, so they do not need protection from the regulator. However, in the policy paper in the bill, in the policy paper that underpins the bill, the approach there is that treating customers fairly is going to be industry wide and not necessarily limited to retail customers. Financial inclusion, very, very important. And the approach from the FSCA on financial inclusion is really to expand access so that those marginalized sectors of the economy can be brought under the protection, and also can be enabled to participate in the financial sector. And also they're going to be focusing on education to empower individuals to make better decisions. And again, I just want to remind colleagues that this is in the policy paper and it is also in the bill. So these are things that the regulators indicating that they will be undertaking. So it's no longer going to be just lip service. It is something which the regulator is going to be ensuring that from a supervisory and regulatory approach they will be undertaking. So and another important attribute towards the financial inclusion strategy of the regulator is driving economic development and but at the same time, as a check, making sure that it's fair and responsible. Financial inclusion does not mean, for example, just giving out loans to everybody, whether or not they qualify. It's not that to then enable them to participate in the economy. No, there will be fair and responsible inclusion to ensure that there's fair treatment, that the practices are transparent, and also very important, suitability. Okay, financial sector transformation. And what I want to highlight in this slide is that from the FSCA's perspective, transformation goes beyond quotas, numbers, etc. In the bill and in the policy paper, they made it very clear that they will be looking at they will not be looking at representative ownership structures and ticking, for example, and ticking the compliance box, but their approach will be on customers and outcomes. So to make sure that there's the wider access to enable participation in the financial sector, and also to ensure that the sector supports real customer needs and real economic growth. So you would typically think of your products and your services in your strategy, which I'll speak to a little bit later. So you typically think of those instruments as vehicles to ensure wider economic participation, of course, with the marginalized in mind. Okay, extended regulatory oversight. This is new, especially in South Africa, insofar as that it's in legislation. So the financial culture and governance is something which is very central in the bill. What does it entail? It really, because it's in primary legislation, and I keep saying primary legislation because we haven't had any primary legislation in the financial sector in South Africa since the Financial Sector Regulation Act in 2017. So it's almost been 10 years. So for the very first time in the financial sector, you have culture and governance as key primary law objectives. It will be a requirement that leadership will take responsibility for the culture and governance of financial institutions. And I'll get into the detail a little bit later in a couple of the slides below. And that the governance and strategic outcomes from controlling bodies will be inclusive of that there has to be accountability, not just at the bottom or the middle, but from the top, and also that there will be closer relations between risk and conduct with the aim of delivering value and building trust with customers. And as I said, this is embedded in the bill. This is from the bill that we have currently seen, a closed list. However, in probably what will follow through conduct standards, these will be fleshed out, but at the very least, from a minimum principles and outcomes basis, for your financial institutions, these are the key attributes that you need to consider as you build out your strategy. So yeah, I think they're quite obvious, and some of them will be very familiar, conflicts of interest, etc. And these are the things that I would encourage colleagues within their financial institutions to start thinking about, in particular from the perspective of aligning with the COFI bill. And as I said, obligations of the governing body, the responsibilities, and this is from the bill, to endorse and approve corporate culture within the financial institution. So I can already envisage some policies that will be the vehicles through which this will be done. But again, it would have to be a collective effort within financial institutions. and it would have to be something that will be canvassed more widely across the financial institution. So it's something that will have to be adopted, not just from an endorsement leadership perspective, but throughout the organization. Okay, strategic implications for financial institutions. What the FSCA is going to be undertaking is that the shift will be from what we currently have, tick box, thou shalt do types of pieces of legislation, both primary and secondary. And the shift will be towards a focus to customer outcomes and driving, and then from their perspective, driving financial institution behavior. And from a conduct risk perspective, this will be a key factor in all financial institutions and something that they need to factor in their risk strategies. Strong governance and ethical culture, very important, and also then important insofar as adaptability within institutions. And again, just the last point on customer-centric approaches versus regulatory expectation. This is not a choice because this is in the legislation. Okay, how do we as financial institutions start preparing for this? So I attended the Financial Sector Conduct Authorities conference, industry conference, the annual one, about 4 weeks ago. And the theme and message from one of my former colleagues, Eugene, who's driving Eugene DeToy, who's driving COFI, was that financial institutions must start preparing now for COFI and not wait until the bill is approved. Of course, there will be transitional arrangements and there will be time given for financial institutions to incorporate, but the sooner you do it, the better and easier thing and the easier things will be as you approach D-Day. Okay. What will be the FSCA's approaches from the get-go? So they will intensify supervisory interventions where risks arise. So we're all aware of the omni-risk returns approach that the FSCA is now undertaking with financial institutions, where they submit certain reports, and then from there they will glean and look for where conduct risk is arising, and that is where they will focus. So whilst it will be risk-based, but one shouldn't rest on their laurels and think that there isn't any risk from a regulatory perspective within a particular industry or within a particular area where certain products and services are being offered. They will be focusing on harmful business models, and also they will be using data. So I think that as financial institutions in the sector are moving towards the adoption of AI and technology, regulatory technology is a thing. It is a thing, and the regulators will also be utilizing that as well. And yes, of course, even from the Financial Sector Regulation Act's policy principles, one of those in COFI as well is a more intrusive and proactive approach to regulation. Okay, how financial institutions should prepare? I would say that one needs to embed customer fairness into your governance and strategic decision making. Because we've been so used to phase for the last 20 or so years, one would have to review policies and maybe to a certain extent board structures to ensure that there's alignment with, at the very least, the minimum principles envisaged in COFI. Each financial institution will have to design its own policies, and that is really the requirement insofar as that the regulator through COFI will no longer be telling you what to do, extensively like what it is currently. However, they will be expecting that from a specific institution's perspective, you would have assessed your policies, you would have assessed your structures with the aim of strengthening your product governance and oversight, and then, of course, your interaction with your customers and how you build trust. Continuing on this theme of integration, so again, the board and executive will be accountable for conduct outcomes, similar to what you have in FICA insofar as RMCPs are concerned. So the expectation is that there will be not just lip service to how institutions will be accountable insofar as the way they conduct themselves in the market. There will be sort of very defined board and executive accountability within each organization. And this doesn't mean that it's every organization now has to adopt the same approach. Nope. The expectation is that it will differ from organization to organization as you review and assess your environment. And the minimum principles will be on culture, how you conduct yourself, etc. Staff training, I mean, that just simply goes without saying, and that's going to be very important. It's going to be a journey. Okay, and these are the culture and governance principles that I was speaking to earlier without going into the detail, but there they are. I think most colleagues will be very familiar with them. I won't delve into too much detail on this slide. Implementation of the treating customers fairly framework. Again, there will be an expectation that even from what we currently have as requirements, I mean, we have the TCF principles, but now they have to be embedded in your policies, in your operating procedures, and of course, then as outcomes that your clients come across. And of course, one has to be proactive and one has to also ensure that they demonstrate fair customer outcomes. Okay, what must the governing body do? It must endorse the conduct culture. There must be oversight over implementation. There must be monitoring and reviews. And of course, as financial institutions roll out more innovative products and financial services, there has to be that monitoring and review and assessment specifically and very important on suitability to clients. I'm not going to go into fit and proper, everybody knows that. And of course, there's also going to be the requirement that there must be a maintenance of adequate resources and oversight mechanisms. Okay, financial products and services, I've been mentioning it, but now just looking at some of the detail. In some of the other slides, you would have seen that I spoke to what is envisaged in the bill insofar as post-sale barriers and how that's going to be regulated to ensure that it's fair. And there's going to be those oversight arrangements that will need to be embedded within financial institutions' approaches across the product life cycle, from the moment that terms and conditions are signed with a client to the delivery of the product in the manner in which that product was outlined to the clients. That's going to be very important that that is adhered to. And of course, there must be transparency and customer needs in mind as well. Okay. In conclusion, we've had the Financial Sector Regulation Act, which is a regulator-facing act. Now we have the very first industry-facing bill that will be an act, which is COFI. The interaction between the two is really insofar as licensing is concerned and the powers that will be given to the FSCA insofar as issuing a COFI license, and that's what it's going to be referred to. All current licenses for FSPs and other financial institutions, bar the prudentially regulated institutions, their licenses will be converted into COFI licenses. And as I said, there will be transitional arrangements, so no panic yet. And the types of licenses that will be issued will be activity-based. So you will think of it as a passport. So you'll get a passport, which is going to be the COFI license. And then for you to be able to travel to different countries, which is in this instance, for you to travel to different countries, which in this instance will be the various financial products, you will have, yes, the various activities that you will be issuing. But thank you to everyone. That is it from me. And I will take any questions if there's any. Over to you, Carl.
Really appreciated that update on Kofi and all the opportunities, challenges, and things that we need to be aware of going forward. So whether you're in the front line as a salesperson, relationships person, or more back office, compliance and related, everybody plays a very important role within financial services, within the insurance industry, and it's great to be working together. So that brings us to the end of today. The session was made possible by our headline sponsor, OMI, Old Mutual Insurance, and thank you very much for the fantastic content from your team members, our association partner, the FIA, and our media partner, FA News. Thank you very much to the CN&CO team who, from the event side, who put all of this together. This was our 62nd edition. As we conclude, we are going to be playing a little bit from The Insurance Apprentice. For those of you who haven't yet watched an episode, we do want to give you a taster for a couple of minutes about what you're missing out on, and we would strongly encourage you to go and support The Insurance Apprentice, which is really doing magnificent brand building for the industry, but also giving great opportunities to some of the younger members within insurance. We will see you next month. As always, check out information on CN&CO, social media, or InsureTalk's website. All the information is there for the CPD hours, upcoming dates, and opportunities. If you want to get involved personally or through your company, all the details are there, and you can get hold of Llewellyn and the team. Thank you very much to everybody for making today possible. Enjoy this episode from The Insurance Apprentice, and see you next month.
Sasria, as the only company in South Africa that insures you against civil unrest.
I'm Tapela Mokoena, and this is The Insurance Apprentice. In our previous episode, the top 10 faced their toughest challenge yet.
Process, trust and process. We're repeating ourselves and we were long past this.
Sorry, Morgan. I think you misunderstood me. I did not say influencers. I said celebrities.
But just when they thought they had it figured out, a twist no one saw coming changed everything. Do any of you have a risk shield? Because that would give you immunity.
I do.
In a dramatic turn of events, Morgan was sent home. Now only 9 remain. 1 winner, and the race to become the Insurance Apprentice is far from over.
Woo! Another day, another dollar, and the girl is still here.
Last week's elimination was brutal. I actually thought I was going to be up for elimination.
Top 10, Morgan was eliminated, but I am very happy that it isn't me.
Winning would really mean the world for me. It would show me that I actually do know what I'm doing within the insurance industry. It would also help with my imposter syndrome. I think this journey has been very difficult. Self-doubt creeps up, but winning would really validate what I've been doing all these years.
I'm currently looking like the weakest link. I want to just change perceptions of the judges.
It's still a competition and I don't want to be found dead last.
What motivates me is definitely the prizes. Title of being the Insurance Apprentice.
I think it's making a name for myself in the industry.
This is not my first time entering the competition. The main reason why I'm back is because I need to finish what I started. I did not study insurance. I only found out about the insurance after I had graduated. So winning the Insurance Apprentice will really, really mean that my hard work is paying off.
Very excited for today, but the more I go into this competition, the more tangible that winning is there. So I'm gonna give it my best.
Welcome back, Top 9.
Thank you.
Now, all of you have survived 2 rounds of eliminations, and one of you could easily be in the running to become the next insurance apprentice. Let me take you through the prizes and what's up for grabs. The insurance apprentice will win 100,000 Rand cash from Aon South Africa, 100,000 Rand investment from Discovery Insure, a trip to Mauritius for 2 with 100,000 Rand from Elite Risk Acceptances, a global networking experience sponsored by Lloyd's, and 100,000 Rand bursary from Mill Park Education. That's not it. A leadership development course from Gibbs with 400,000 Rand sponsored by InsureTalk. And of course, other top-ups to make this the biggest prize pool ever. Yeah. Now, to help me introduce the next challenge, please welcome the amazing Gugu Mkhize from InsureTalk.
My name is Gugu Mkhize. I'm the CEO of the InsureTalk62. InsureTalk62 is a facilitator of skills development within the insurance and related sector. What I'm looking for is innovation, creativity, and their ability to integrate the social media platform into their presentation. But more than anything else, understanding in depth what the careers in the insurance industry are going to look like now and in the future. Your challenge today is to create the most compelling campaign promoting a career in insurance. The campaign should be focused on attracting young people or potential entrants into the insurance industry. It must be compelling, attractive, but also exciting.
Now, before we get this started, I'm going to divide you guys into 2 teams. Yes. These are our teams.
Tapelo just goes in the middle of us and he splits us and he's like, these are your teams. If I had known that was going to happen, maybe I would have thought a bit more carefully of where I was standing.
I'm a bit glad that I'm not paired with Gugu, so I'm really looking forward to a healthy team dynamic.
To bring this campaign to life and make it truly impactful, you guys are going to be working with 2 young co-creators. They are from the very same target market that you are trying to speak to. Team 1. You're going to be working with an amazing young man by the name of Josh. Come on over, Josh. Yeah.
I'm Joshua. I'm here today to secretly be a mole amongst the groups, and I'm going to give my feedback in the end on them, but they don't know that just yet.
Team 2, you're going to be working with an amazing young man by the name of Connor. Please give him a round of applause.
So I'm Connor van der Merwe. I'm very excited to be here today because I get to work with the team and get more of an inside view on how the task works.
Now, teams, when working on the future, with the future, there's no better time like the present to get it started. Let's get to work.
Let's get to it.
It's so exciting.
Very excited.
Oh my gosh. The task today is quite interesting. It's actually a campaign targeted towards young people to educate them about insurance and InsureTalk, the opportunities available for them. Like most insurance professionals, I sort of landed in insurance by fate. And had I had somebody take me through it, I might have taken a completely different path within the insurance space.
All right, team, we only have one task today. We'll be driving the machine forward.
None coming up, if you don't mind.
It's fine.
All right.
So Bego nominated himself. I do feel that Karabo would have spearheaded this challenge better, but we're just going to see how he manages the team.
We'll obviously explain a little bit in terms of what are these roles, and then maybe I'd like to get your feel and how do you understand? So actuaries, you know, something comes, maths and all those technicalities come to.
Our generation hates big words. Yeah, they gave me a brief overview and I told them straight, I was like, I don't know what you're saying. And they eventually started explaining it more in depth to me. And then after that, I told them what our generation likes to see.
Being a broker, and I will make mention that you travel a lot, you get to meet different people. So with that being said, you also get to grow your network.
I was about to highlight that the same benefit that you highlighted of being a broker applies to being an underwriter as well.
Sorry, may I just highlight something? I think he was very clear that the jargon, broker, what does that entail? It was important to understand how he understood insurance so that that could be our starting point. Because he's the target market. If he leaves that room and he's like deer in headlights, we were screwed.
Let's say they crashed their first car and then, you know, it's like, here's insurance to help you to like get your car fixed up again, and it helps you to not go broke. You know,
Okay, love that.
So I think that's a starting point for us, because the fact that he's mentioned that, it shows how his generation sees insurance.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And coming from that point of view would help us be able to market to them.
I actually do appreciate Karabo including me in all the conversations, because I feel a lot more important. It feels like I'm actually there and I'm working with the team.
We're going to start from his negative perception after consultation and getting inspired, and find out his perception afterwards. That's the skit.
We all agree?
Yeah.
I think it was so pivotal to the challenge today because we needed his insight.
Alrighty, so we got our challenge.
So the task is essentially for us to showcase a career in insurance. When I was in high school, I wish I knew about InsureTalk. It would have broadened my scope of what insurance is. If I knew about InsureTalk, my introduction to insurance would have been more intentional than accidental.
All right, so I'm really excited though about this challenge, but also anxious.
Yeah.
Because what do you kids do now? What do you watch? Anime? What do you watch now? YouTube? What do you guys do?
Oh, we're on a lot of other platforms.
Like YouTube?
Yeah, like YouTube. YouTube is a big one. But one good thing is that at least we still get ads, so something at the end of the day can still be promoted.
Okay, awesome. So this is where we come in.
I think our intention was to make it about Josh. We're trying to get an understanding of which platform they use, what they watch. So we're trying to get feedback more from him and get perspective from him.
There are lists of
Scarce skills.
Scarce skills, right?
10
I'm just
of
going to
them,
quickly
yeah.
go into them. So I know for free that sales consultant or insurance consultant is not a scarce skill.
I disagree.
How is it scarce?
People insurance don't know the alternative risk side of it's still insurance,
Yeah.
but it's still scarce in the sense that we are looking for talent.
I think from Google's perspective, she has been exposed to contact centers. In KG's work environment, someone is still a sales consultant, but they need to sell the big risk to two companies. Having the two perspectives helps us create the right narrative.
What jumps out to me immediately is insurance underwriting. If you go into insurance, starting out with underwriting gives you the opportunity to be a successful attorney within insurance, a successful accountant within insurance. So I've had career setbacks, as you would expect. With me, it was quite unique in the sense that when COVID struck, at the time I was an owner of a business. I was running a law firm. COVID actually was a big obstacle in shaping my career. Had it not been for COVID, I would not be here. It was an obstacle back then, but a blessing in disguise.
With this whole underwriting thing, I like the fact that it seems so diverse, and it also seems that you start somewhere and it can lead to something great.
We realized immediately that Josh is very good at absorbing information. He's quite a phenomenal young man. He very much participated in the team as much as any other team member.
Awesome. We locking it in?
Yeah.
Sasria ensures that when things go bad, Sasria makes good. Sasria ensures that when things go bad, Sasria makes good.